we're kind of way out north of Austin, it's a little bit harder for them to get to the resources, especially for our families that are in that rural communities that don't have necessarily transportation or the financial ability to get connected with that. And so I think that's a big piece of what we do in our area as school counselors, is trying to find those resources for students.
So those are some of the challenges that counselors in Leander ISD are facing when it comes to tackling mental health. And all this week, we're taking a closer look at this topic, sitting down with more school officials from across Texas, part of our Save Our Students project. And this morning, we're happy to be joined by Lake Travis ISD Superintendent Dr. Brad Lancaster. That rural community aspect was a challenge for them. So how, in your district, how are you guys going about getting that access to mental health services for students?
John, just this year, we've added a brand new position to our school district, a licensed clinical social worker. We have a director of health and social emotional learning already, and that person added this new position. This person is intended to be a crisis intervention therapist. We have counselors in every school, 8 counselors in our high school. We added an 8th counselor to our Lake Travis High School this summer as well. But this district-wide position of licensed clinical social worker is meant to be a crisis intervention person, a therapist who can work directly with students who are in true severe crisis. Our school counselors are ready and able to work with students on the more typical kinds of problems they encounter, relationships beginning or ending, breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, parents struggling, typical kinds of things our counselors deal with.
I feel like a lot of people think that we're just hearing about this now more these days than we did decades ago. You're kind of the perfect person to ask about this. You've been doing this for nearly 4 decades. Have you seen a change in mental health among young people, or is it just that we're talking about it more and we just ignored it in years past?
I think it's a little of both. We are definitely talking about it more. When I was a student in the 60s and 70s, and when I've been an administrator for the last 35 or 6 years, we've always had counselors. But we didn't have the national dramatic incidences that we've had 40 years ago or 100 years ago of school shootings and suicides. They weren't as well known. We didn't have that kind of attention. So I think it's mostly we're talking about it more, but it's certainly a role that the districts need to take on and it'll serve our students better.
Sure. Social media, all that stuff can add other
Yes.
pressures as well. I want to change topics to the growth that you're seeing in your district. I think generally on the surface we kind of think, okay, growth is a good thing. That that means the district is getting bigger and stronger, but I know it also brings some logistical issues, building new schools, redrawing lines. Would there be a point where you'd be like, okay, we're big enough. We don't need to grow anymore here in Lake Travis?
Well, there's not a gate. You can't close the door, and so you don't have the luxury as a school district of saying, we're finished. We have grown 76% in the last 10 years. We're going to add 3 to 4, 5% this year. We know we will go from 11,000 students this year to, when we are finished growing, we'll be at about 22 or 3 or 4,000 students. That is 15 to 20 years away. You are limited by geography, and so you can say we're done when there's no more room to build new houses. Eanes ISD is landlocked and limited. They're finished growing. Lake Travis ISD has 30% more of our land that's empty and left to build on. So we've got a ways to go.
School finance. When we had you in here a while back before, we asked you the 3 most important things for your district, and you said school finance, school finance, school finance. Well, they did something during this past legislative session. What is your reaction to the new school finance bill and the new structure here in Texas, and do you think it's good for your district?
It has been good for Lake Travis. The biggest change for our school district has been the reduction of the amount of money we send to the state in Robin Hood or recapture payments. Last year, we were sending over 50% of our locally raised tax dollars in our budget, our revenue, back to the state of Texas in form of Robin Hood payments. That has dropped dramatically. We don't know the exact amount this year, but that money is staying in our local district. We were able to give a significant raise this year because of that money staying in our district, and we're grateful for that. We also benefited from a brand new fast growth school allotment. They've never recognized fast growth school districts financially before, and that's a new benefit this year from the legislature. Very grateful for those new influx of money staying in our district and new dollars as well.
Bottom line, so far, you're happy with it.
We are happy.
All right,
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Brad Lancaster, thank you so much. Best of luck on this school year.
Hi there, I'm Alyssa Goard and I'm here with Dr. Brad Lancaster of Lake Travis ISD. He's the superintendent there, and we're doing a digital exclusive as part of our Save Our Students series. I understand that you were a teacher at one point.
I taught high school in College Station ISD. I've been an assistant principal, a principal, assistant superintendent, and a superintendent. This is my 36th year in education.
And especially when it comes to mental health and wellness and what we understand and what we talk about around that, what has changed for teachers since the time that you taught to now?
I think it's a topic we just talk about more. I don't know if there are more instances of student difficulty from 30, 50, 75 years ago than today. It feels like it, but I think maybe part of that is just more media attention. The outcome is still the same. Our schools are involved in this more than we ever have been before. When I was a student, we had a school counselor. When I was a teacher and a principal, we had a school counselor. We've had school counselors for as long as I can remember. That role has changed, however, and in our district we have hired a person just this summer, a licensed clinical social worker, to deal with students who are in severe stress. Our school counselors do an excellent job dealing with day-to-day typical kinds of problems that students face, but this district-wide person is going to help us work with our counselors and teachers and administrators and identify students and families who are truly in crisis and provide an immediate therapeutic situation for those families. Then connect them to resources in our community for a long-term sort of solution.
As for the social worker you guys are bringing on your staff, how will that person navigate going to all of the different campuses?
The job isn't to be a day-to-day interaction with the campus. It is to respond to crisis phone calls and crisis contacts from our school district staff. And so it's not a daily intervention in every building, although that person will work with our school counselors as well as our director of social and emotional learning and counseling services, a district-wide person. This person's job is to react to crisis situations. And when she gets a phone call, she will go to that campus and intervene with that student, work with that family, and ultimately, over a period of weeks, get them some help in our community.
I was checking out the district website and there was something listed there called the Cavs Who Care tip line.
Right.
You're familiar with that?
I am.
So tell us a little bit about that tip line. What is it? How does it work? Does it work?
We think it works very well. It is an anonymous resource for anyone in our community member, an employer, a best friend, a parent. Anyone can call or email or text and anonymously say, this person is having trouble. And we get tips every single day. Elementary school, middle school, and high school. Most of our tips come from our secondary grades, 6th and 7th grade through 12th grade, but we still get some occasionally for elementary school. And depending on which campus is identified, that tip goes to the campus principal, a counselor, and 2 or 3 district-wide people who monitor all of the campuses. And so instantly we know if there's a problem going on. Some of the tips we get are frivolous, and they're kids just playing around. But we have had a number of tips that have been very critical. And we've had a tip in the middle of the night where we've involved the police to knock on a family's door and make sure everything's okay. And we were glad we did. We had a student in crisis. And so we're grateful for that. We communicate that as often as we can. We'd rather have more tips than fewer and be safe rather than sorry, but it has been an excellent resource for us. One thing we're doing in our school district this year that we're excited about is called a standard response protocol. We've hired a brand new position in our district, a coordinator of safety and security, a man who's got 20 plus years in Austin PD as a retired police officer, a number of years experience in command and SWAT situation. And we wanted to have a law enforcement person on our payroll working with us in the district-wide level to help us look at all of our buildings, exterior entrances, the consistency with which people enter into a building, the consistency with which we operate any kind of drill, a fire drill, a bad weather drill, a lockdown drill. But the standard response protocol is a new movement this year that's been implemented in Hays County. And we're duplicating that in Travis County. I have 3 different police municipalities we work with in Lake Travis ISD, City of Lakeway, City of Bee Cave, and Travis County law enforcement. And so all of us have been meeting monthly to establish this standard response protocol, which is a common language, common terminology, and a common response to any kind of situation, whether it's just bad weather or an active shooter. We've not had that before. What we would call a soft lockdown, one of our law enforcement agencies would have a different terminology for it. We're all going to get on the same page with our terminology and our response, which gives us a better, shorter reaction time.
Excellent. Again, we're here with Brad Lancaster. He is the Superintendent of Schools for Lake Travis ISD. Thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.